Welcome to Revival Remodels. I'm Kyle, the founder, and this is my partner Megan. We've been remodeling homes our entire lives, and we're here to share our expert advice and money-saving tips on home improvement, remodeling, rental properties, and more. All right, welcome to today's project. If you are annoyed by anything that you see behind me, you might be able to guess what it is. We're going to fix this problem where the homeowner that we're doing some work for, this is what they were left with to power their TV, and that goes over to an outlet, maybe a little bit out of the frame here. But the house was just remodeled right before she bought it about a year ago, and the house is out in Reno, Nevada, and I normally don't do work out this far from where we live, about an hour away in the Lake Tahoe area. But a friend of mine who is a graphic designer down in the San Diego area called me and he said, hey, I have a client. She lives in Reno. She just bought a house and it was remodeled, but after moving in and living in it for a little while, they discovered there was a lot of things missing. Like basic things that you would do in a remodel, like the ceiling lights here in the living room did not exist. We actually just added those, and you can see those in a separate video I'll link to. The pendant light over the kitchen table was way off center and not where it needed to be, so we relocated that. The kitchen lights were very minimal, so we added some in there. And then we also planted new outlets all over the house because they were missing critical outlets in critical spots that they needed to address during the remodel, such as this one behind the TV. Not having an outlet behind the TV, it's like a major miss for a basic remodel. So we got called in to add some lights and add some outlets, move some things, hang some art, and today we're going to fix this problem and we're going to put an outlet behind the TV. I'll give you a hint. There is going to be a problem, and the reason I know there's going to be a problem is because every time we've cut into the walls in this house, we have been faced with a very difficult problem. There are a series of layers to this wall, including, but not limited to, old drywall, some type of concrete substrate. It doesn't look like concrete board, but it's some type of concrete. And then there is also an additional layer of wood paneling. So I have cut into this wall previously, and the actual thickness of the wall is about 1.5 inches. And so when we go to cut some holes here, it's going to be a problem. Here's actually a cross-section example. This came off the ceiling. I'll hold it up here closer so you can kind of get a look at this. So this came out of the ceiling. This was a hole for a light that we tried to cut, and your typical drywall knife that you stick up in there wouldn't cut it. And you can see there's little stones in this concrete substance. The white substance on top is drywall, and this is a concrete substance. Doesn't look like concrete board, but if you know what this is or have an idea about what this is, my guess, closest guess, would be that it's some type of spreadable plaster or stucco cement material. So if you know what this is or why they would have put this over top of the old drywall, please let me know in the comments and I'll give you a high five. So let's get started. We got all our tools down here. We'll do a quick tool check. We got our 12-2 Romex wire. I'm going to attempt to find another circuit that's in the crawl space that we can connect our 12-2 wire. I want to find a 20 amp circuit, so I've got the appropriate wire size. Got our trusty Milwaukee drill, DeWalt oscillating tool to cut the holes in the wall, mini level, giant drill bit. Electricians call these nail eaters. They'll go pretty much through anything. And then we've got our outlet box and our new outlet. You could get a sunken outlet as well. We didn't really have time to go source one of those for this project. We're trying to get it done for the holidays because our family's coming in just a day or two. So I've got our Milwaukee electrician's snake, and then a big DeWalt drill for when we hit the tough stuff. All right, so let's get started. First thing we're going to do, I want to get this TV down and out of the way. Okay. I'm going to take it over here and set it down. Okay, so the first thing I always like to do is I start with the things that I know to be true, and the one thing that we know to be true is that we're gonna have a box right here. So first thing we'll do is we'll mark that out and cut it out. I'll just typically take the box. I want to go right in here. I'm not even really worried about if there's framing back there because this wall is such a mess. I can kind of make this work even if we do land on some framing. I've got a couple ways we're going to get around this. If you have just a regular wall, like a drywall surface that's a 1/2 inch thick, you may want to be concerned about where your framing is. Use a stud finder or a nail. But this wall is so thick and built up of so many layers, I'm not even going to worry about the framing because a stud finder probably wouldn't work on this thick of a surface. And even if I did the old-fashioned method where I knock on the wall until I hear the stud, which I can usually do on a drywall surface, it's not going to work because this wall is at least 1.5 inches thick with concrete in the middle. So that's why we're not really going to worry about it, because there's really not a way to detect it. But if you do have drywall, you want to find out where your studs are and make sure that when you put your outlet in, you don't land on the stud. All right, so let's go ahead and mark this out. I'm going to put my little mini level on here to make sure it's nice and level. I want to go just a little bit over to the left, just like that. A little more, okay. Now I can drop my level and just make a little mark on the left, the right, the top, and the bottom, and that's where our outlet's gonna go. So that's our known first step. We know we're gonna have a hole there. The goal is to avoid having any additional holes in the wall, especially since we got a surface like this that would be very difficult to patch, but I'm pretty certain we're still gonna have to cut a hole down there, but we're gonna do our best as we go here. All right, so I got our DeWalt oscillating tool. Got a hardcore blade, says it's rated for metal and wood. All right, so we're gonna cut this out, and it's gonna come out in layers because I've done this before, and you'll see what I mean once we get in here. There she goes. All right, so we got the first layer out, and then voila, the second layer. So this is like a composite paneling, about 1/4 inch thick. Now we've got this other layer. This is the concrete layer. It's got some orange or green, all kinds of colors on there, coating. So instead of ruin my oscillating tool blade like I've done about 10 other times in this house, I think what I'll do is use this giant drill bit, and we're just going to drill that out because it will, anytime you cut concrete or concrete board with anything other than a cement cutting blade or concrete blade, it's going to ruin it quickly. So we're going to use this huge drill bit. And there you can see the concrete material, whatever it is, it's starting to chip away. It's very flaky. And I'm just going real slow, making sure I don't hit anything that's behind there. Almost there. There we go. All right, so now we're, yeah, there's 3 layers. Cement something or other, and then drywall back there. Okay, made a mess, but not too bad. gonna grab a chisel, a file, whatever I can use here to get this to go away. That works pretty good. This is what you run into a lot of times with old houses. People say that they remodeled them, but they don't tell you all the shortcuts they took that are going to make working on that house a nightmare for the eternity of the house as long as you own it. And so even building inspectors, they're going to come out, they're going to check the basics. They're not going to advise you on things like this and tell you that your walls are going to be a nightmare for the eternity of the home. Anytime you want to run a circuit, add a light, an outlet, just nothing but a headache. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's make sure our box is going to fit. Just doing a little fitment test here. I'm not going to push it all the way in. If you push it all the way in, you may not be able to get it back out very easily. Okay, not bad, not bad. We're just a little tight. I got this file that I think will work. Just file these edges down where the concrete board is sticking out. Okay, let's test fit our box again. Gucci. All right. Now here's what I'm talking about. You push the box too far in, you may not get it back out. There we go. All right, so that's our known hole that we had to cut. And look at this. Absolutely no insulation in the wall, which I discovered when I cut into the wall over there to the left to put the light switch in. For the overhead lights, absolutely no insulation. So home inspector would probably not have caught that either. They don't open your wall and look to see if there's insulation in there. So if you are buying a home or considering remodeling a home, I would recommend cutting a hole in the wall and seeing what's in there. Now I know you can't always do that, but hey, sometimes if it's an old property, it's a fixer-upper, and you ask the seller, hey, would you mind if I cut a hole in the wall, see what's in there, see how thick the wall is, see if there's insulation. They might say yes, so give it a try, and that's a prime example of what you don't know when you get a home inspection. They're checking the basics, and everybody knows how to sort of study for the test, study for the inspection, basically. They know what an inspector comes out and does, and when a lot of people do a remodel, they'll take these shortcuts, and the inspector never mentions it, and the homeowner never knows. Okay, so this is actually great. So it just so happened that there is some wood framing right here on the right side of this hole, kind of right in this zone. And so that's perfect for us because we're going to be taking our Romex wire and we're going to be running it down that hole. And this is the hard part. How do we get the wire through the bottom plate of the wall and into the crawl space? So if you've never seen the inside of a wall before, typically what you have is vertical boards that are running floor to ceiling every 16 inches. So if we have one here, there'd be another one somewhere over here. And then at the top and bottom, you typically have at least one or two plates, they call them. These are the boards that span the top and the bottom of the wall. So what we need to do is get down through the bottom plate and then into the crawl space where we'll connect to another circuit. Now, if this was a drywall application and there was no unexpected problems like we've run into, be super easy. I do it all the time. What you would do is cut a hole at the bottom directly underneath here, and then you're going to drill down through the bottom plate, and then you'll be able to, with two holes, one at the top and one at the bottom, you'll be able to stuff the wire down through the bottom plate of the wall and then into the crawl space, and then you can easily repair the drywall. In this application, we are not that lucky because we have all this extra wall surface. So what I'm going to try to do is take this gigantic drill bit. I'm going to go down in the crawl space, which is very limited as far as mobility, and I'm going to try to drill up through the bottom plate directly under this hole. So when I go down in the crawl space, you know, it's like 12 inches of clearance down there, and I'm going to be kind of disoriented, wondering how can I drill a hole behind the wall right beneath this hole. So what I'm going to do is find a reference point. I see over here on the floor I have an HVAC vent, and let's change the camera angle. There's the vent over there, and there's my hole. So what I'm going to do when I go down in the crawl space is I'm going to find this HVAC vent. It should be connected to a duct there, and off of that vent I'm going to take a measurement. It's just an approximation, but it's just shy of 6 feet. So from where that vent is to where my hole is, it's 6 feet, which is exactly how tall I am. So when I get down there, I'm going to be laying flat on my belly, and I can use myself as a human tape measure. I'll put my feet where the duct is, under there, and then 6 feet from there to the top of my head, I'm going to drill up through the wall, hopefully, and then we're going to try and stuff our fish tape up that hole, and then we're going to try to get it to land out here so that we can make this connection without having to drill any secondary holes behind the, almost said drywall. It's like the wall of all materials here, so call it whatever you want. All right, so let's go down in the crawl space. Okay, we're down in the crawl space, and I've located that duct that we are trying to reference off of. So I got my human tape measure. There's the edge of the duct right there. And then if I use my human tape measure, my head is located right about where this board is. So I'm gonna drill just to the left and right up through there. And what we can do, we're gonna pull this back, and that's where we're gonna drill our hole, straight up through the floor right there. And you wanna drill it just behind this concrete foundation surface right there. Okay, we got our hole. Now, what are the chances? There's a giant spider. Where'd you go? Right there. Look, got an orange belly. Oh yeah. Okay, so what are the chances that hole lines up with our hole that we cut for the TV outlet? Okay, so what we're gonna do is shoot at least 5 feet of this up through that hole, plus what we got sticking down. So we want to run that up in there, doing this one-handed. We want to go all the way up in there at least 5 feet so we can find it when we go back up top. Okay, so it wasn't pretty, but after some discovery, I had to cut another hole here. I'll put up a picture. I actually was able to stick my phone in this hole and very carefully take a picture. And turns out they've got some diagonal bracing in between the framing that's preventing our fish wire from coming up. And it's right down here. Some electricians will probably trash me in the comments and tell me to go get one of those 6-foot long drill bits that will go down through the framing and through the floor plate. but I don't have one of those today, and I can patch this hole really quickly. I brought some wood putty and everything we need. So we're gonna have to knock this out. And once we do, I think we're gonna see our fish tape right behind here. Okay. All right, and there's the framing right there where we wanted it. Now we're gonna cut that framing out and see if we can get our fish tape from right behind here. There it is, look at that. We got the fish tape. Okay, so all we got to do now get some of this out of there so we have a nice clean entry going up to the actual hole we're trying to get to. And voila, this goes right down to the crawl space. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take our 12-2 wire. Okay, so you want to uncoil the wire so that it doesn't get tangled. And we're going to pull this thing down, I'd say probably 15 or 20 feet. So I'm going to pull this wire out. And I'm going to straighten it like this. Twist all these turns out of it so that our wire goes straight and down and into the crawl space where we're going to connect it to another outlet or a junction box down there. Haven't really decided yet, but we're going to find out. Okay, take our electrical tape. Take the end of our wire. I like to feed it through like this and then fold it over like that so that you get a nice grab on there, and then I'll run the tape around there 8 or 10 times, usually enough to hold it unless you're going to hit something in the wall that's going to try and rip it off. Okay, so now we're going to feed this back down. We want to feed it as far down as we can while we have the opportunity up here. See if we can get this thing to go down. Okay, we're going to just have to go down and pull it because I can't fish it down. Okay, we're down here in the crawl space. We got our wire right here coming from the TV outlet. And then we're gonna use this wire that's got a little slack in it. And we're gonna create a junction box right here. And that will allow us to tie the TV outlet into this, which I believe is the outlets in the dining area. Okay, good news. Down in the basement, I was able to pull the wire all the way through, and I pulled out about 20 feet, and I was able to locate a section where we can create a junction box to get power from another wire coming off of a 20 amp circuit. And so we are ready to put our box in. I'm gonna cut off typically about a foot sticking out of the wall. And then We can get our wire back out in the truck. We can go ahead, if you have these boxes, they have these little tabs behind them that'll break off. And you can slide your wire right in there. This is what they call an old work box. It means you're installing it in a location where there's previously already been a wall. So they have these little ear tabs. Oh, I think that one just broke right off. She was just acting funny. There you go. So an old work box, when you go to the hardware store, an old work box is if you already have an existing wall and you need the kind of box with the little tabs on it. There we go. That top one. Nice and tight. So now we can take our wire strippers. Typically, if you want to know how much wire you need to strip off, I usually strip off about almost as much as the length of a pair of wire strippers. So if you put those up next to it, I'll go just a little bit less than the length of a pair of wire strippers. I'll pull that off. Gonna clip my ends here. First thing I want to do is look at my outlet. Every outlet has a different way of attaching the wires. Some have a sort of a hook and loop system. Others have a sort of clamping system. And then they also have a stabbing system where you can just push the wire into the back of the outlet. But ask anybody who knows anything about wiring up outlets and they'll tell you never to use the backstabbing holes on the back because wires come loose and disaster happens. All right, so based on my outlet here, what I just did was I'm only connecting one wire to this outlet, or one set of wires. So I screwed in the two bottom holes, bottom screws, because they're going to be unused. The only ones we're going to use are the ground, the neutral side, and then the hot side. So we only need the 3 screws. If we had extra outlets or any other reason that we would use those bottom ones, I would leave them unscrewed, but we don't. So based on this type of outlet, it looks like the system where you make a hook and loop it around the screw, which is easy to do. I typically take off about 3/4 of an inch for the black and the white wires. And then I like to take my ground wire and cut it back, maybe about an inch, inch and a half. And then we can go ahead and use the wire strippers to put these loops on. The reason I like to cut the ground back is because you don't need a very long ground. It's going to get stuffed in the back of the box and just kind of optimizes the space inside the box. All right, so we got our wires cut back about 3/4 of an inch, made a little hook and loop system, and then grab our drill. First, I like to hook up the ground wire. You always want to put the hook that you create turning in the direction that the screw turns. Another thing I like to do, see a problem we're going to run into here that I can fix, is before I start to turn my screw, kind of reorganize this guy. There we go. Pulled it a little bit loose there. So once you get it wrapped around, sometimes you really got to feed it through there to get it. Sometimes you got to back the screw out. There we go. Got her. Okay, once I got it through there, to prevent it from ever coming off, I like to squeeze it with my pliers here and just close that gap so it has like a complete hook, a complete loop there instead of just a hook. Tighten that up. And then we'll do the same thing on the white side. White goes to the silver screw always. I'll hook that around there, and then once I have it hooked, I like to grab it Sometimes you got to manipulate it a little to get access to it. And then pinch it so that that loop closes and you don't have the wire coming loose. Okay, just snug that up. Same thing on the black side, making sure your loop is consistent with the direction the screw turns, just like this. And then again, I'll pinch this loop. Wasn't a very good loop to begin with. Once you get it around there, then I like to pinch it so that it doesn't come unhooked. Okay. Always just snug it up with the drill. If you try and tighten them with the drill, it will strip out. These screws are pretty crappy. They don't have a lot of strength to them. So I'll tighten it up with a flathead or a number 1 Robbie, electricians call it, which is a square drive screw. Okay, so we're nice and tight. Recheck the ground. Always go around and recheck every wire I connect, just to be sure. Helps me sleep at night. A little bit of electrical tape, and I'll wrap around the outlet. Not really that important on this one because it's the only outlet in the box, but if you get a bunch of switches and outlets running around in all different directions in the box, this really helps you keep the outlet protected from hitting any other wires that aren't intended. Okay, good to go. Flip our outlet right side up. And drop her in these holes. Got a little blood on the wall there. Busted my hand down in the crawl space, got a good cut. But it was worth it because we got the wire ran. Make sure it's level. If you're really worried about it, you can put your little mini level on there. Oh, it's perfect. I got good eyes. It was pure luck. Okay. There's our outlet. Last thing, cover plate. I really like the screwless cover plates, but most homeowners, when I ask them if they want to upgrade to the screwless cover plates, they say they really don't care. These are like $5, and a regular plate cover that does has the 2 screw holes is like 99 cents. So you're paying a lot for this, but I have OCD and I like to see it all screwless. It's got a little plate. Oh, I gotta pull a screw out. That temporary screw, there we go. That screw was only temporary to hold the box while I screwed it in. Outlets have these little tabs on them, and they're not necessary. Little corner ears there. Sometimes they get in the way of these screwless plates when you're trying to mount them. There we go. Sometimes they can cause you a little issue. Okay, bottom one. And then the plate cover goes right on there. Bada bing, bada boom. Now we got to patch this up. And last thing we have to do is go in the crawl space and connect the wire that we pulled down there to a junction box underneath. So we're going to patch this up last. Let's go underneath and we'll get that junction box wired up. Should be pretty quick and easy. I've already figured out where we're going to do it. Just got to grab the wire stapler and a junction box and a couple wire nuts. See you down there. Okay, we got the box up there and we had just enough slack in that wire that we can have 2 ends there that are going to junction together, and then we'll tie the other wire, our TV outlet, right in with those. Okay, we are good to go. If you can see there, our ground wires are all connected, pushed to the back. Black wires, white wires, all connected. Incoming power, and then we have 2 outgoing, one to the TV outlet and then one to some outlets in the dining area. Let's get out of this crawl space. My throat hurts. Okay, time to party. Let's turn all of our breakers back on. I basically shut them all off that I suspected they were. Okay, we are wrapping up. I got my hole patched. It's not my best work, but this was like a composite fiber board paneling and it just crumbled away. So kind of had to do some ugly work there, but I'm going to come back and fill that in and sand it down, paint it, and she'll be good to go. We're ready to hang the TV back up and test it out. I'm going to go ahead, plug it in. I'm sure it's not that easy. Oh, she's already powered up. Trying to do this by yourself. Not that easy. All right, actually turned out. Okay, make sure these little safety guys are in there. Don't want that coming out. There we go. Found a nice little groove for it to go in. Okay. And there she is. See if it fires up. Sure enough. All right, thanks for tuning in for today's project. We are up and running. Just have to do a little patch and repair here, and we'll be good to go. Subscribe to our channel for more remodeling videos, and click up top to watch our next video right now.